Please
Oh,
do.
right.
We need.
I am glad I remember. We should be recording now. But yes, thank you all for joining. So, what will happen is I will open the floor for Dr. Scriven, and he will have 3 minutes to make his affirmative opening statements. Then it will go to Dr. Labossiere for his negative opening statements, and we'll have a round of back and forth. And then we want you all to make to this to be an interactive conversation. So please feel free to put questions in the chat. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to all of your questions or at least some of them. We want this to be a dialogue towards the end with everyone here. So we definitely appreciate you all coming. And I will give the floor over to Dr. Scriven. Dr. Scriven, when you have a minute left, I'll just say 1 minute.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Dr. Labossiere, for debating. So the resolution or the proposition, the statement we are debating is, will artificial intelligence destroy higher education? I am arguing that it will. Dr. Labossiere is arguing that it will not. So for my argument basically is three prongs in his first opening statement. The one is the cost element. So AI dismantles this cost benefit justification that we've had for people engaging in traditional higher education by delivering an equivalent, let's not say equivalent, let's just say a high value learning proposition, almost zero cost. Okay, so in America, the student debt crisis is over $1.7 trillion. Student debt, according to the Federal Reserve, and the ROI of going to college is going down. In other words, we found that 40% of all college graduates report that they are underemployed. And so growing research says that up to 30% of our work hours globally can be replaced by generative AI, and that's going to amount to $20 to $30 billion a year by 2030. So universities generally sell three things. One, we sell knowledge. Two, we sell credentials. And three, we sell network. But the truth is, AI is democratizing knowledge. You can go on large language models, Claude, Chat GPT, and you can get information in ways that you could only get if you paid to go to the institution to get. Secondly, this whole idea of credentialing is the case that now that's being undermined. So you could only get a credential at some point if you went to the university. But a lot of the employers are offering micro credentials, they're offering skill presentation so that if you have these kind of badges, you can demonstrate that you can use these skills. In fact, some of the largest employers are saying that degrees are not required as long as you can demonstrate competency with these skills. Lastly, because we're in a social media age, networks are being digitized. I know that we're used to tactile in-person networks and relationships, but networks are being digitized. And so there's this evidence that what was our justification no longer is. Lastly, we have weaknesses in structure as universities. We have fixed pacing. So we sell units. You take calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, but AI allows for accelerated where you could learn calculus 1, 2, and 3 within the same time frame of calculus 1. So this whole standardized curriculum, that's out the window. That's yesterday. We're still trying to hold on to a yesterday model, not realizing that the technology has upended that. And so, given all of these things, I'm arguing that artificial intelligence, not today, not tonight, not tomorrow, but will destroy higher education.
Okay, Dr. Labossiere is on you, and I will give you a 1 minute warning as well.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So my first set of reasons are what I call the optimistic arguments. And this is a positive approach to why AI won't destroy the academy. First is the analogy of new technology. There have been historical fears going back to our good dead friend Socrates that things like writing, calculators, computers, even the dreaded Walkman. For those of us who remember the Walkman, it's a basically tape thing you'd carry around with you, and it was feared that it would destroy the minds of the youth. However, of course, as we've seen, writing, calculators, computers, and Walkman did not destroy the minds of the youth. So fears about AI are likely to not become true. So AI will probably higher education will probably survive AI. Secondly, and this is not a direct rebuttal of what Dr. Scriven said, but while AI may displace certain jobs, higher education has historically adapted to radical economic shifts. Universities go back to the time of Plato, and we've had obviously massive technological changes since our good dead friend Plato was doing his stuff, and we've adapted to it. So higher education, I think, can be resilient and adapt to the changes. It is a case of course, of evolve or die, but I think we'll evolve rather than die. Another concern that people often bring up about AI destroying more education, in addition to it, destroying the minds of the youth, like the Walkman was supposed to do, is with cheating. That students will use AI and they will, destroy the academy, either themselves or the chance of getting jobs, etc. But cheating is a moral and practical choice. And although AI gives a new tool, it doesn't seem to be substantially increasing the amount of cheating. I could be wrong about this if we consider things like Grammarly. Finally, my positive argument is the utopian argument that we may get a Star Trek style future where we have a highly idealistic scenario where AI driven abundance allows higher education to flourish. It could be done, higher education could continue practically, but also it would allow for the opportunity of personal enrichment and learning. And so the great success of AI, kind of the utopian sci-fi dream as opposed to the dystopian dream, could allow the academy not only to survive, but actually thrive. That everyone in a time of abundance could, if they wish to, pursue higher education. Hopefully degrees in philosophy, because as we all know, I think we can both agree, Dr. Scriven, that philosophy, very important degree. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Scriven, it is on you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Labossiere. So my second set of arguments are really more about the business case. And so it's an indirect argument that says, look at what's happening with employers now. We are seeing record numbers of layoffs that they attribute to artificial intelligence, not just for efficiency reasons, but they're saying that artificial intelligence reduces the need for labor. So if you think about capitalism, capitalism is about labor arbitrage. What I mean by that is you take your labor and you make profit or arbitrage, or if you want to make the labor pool bigger, you take other people's labor and you take the difference between what's charged for that labor and what you pay them. Okay. So when artificial intelligence reduces the need for labor, it reduces the need for industry to be sensitive to the needs of the laborer, i.e., I have to keep them happy so they don't strike, so they'll keep working for me so that I can get the profit off of their labor. If labor is reduced, I don't need to do that anymore. So read that back into the university. Much of why we go to the university is for self-development. You find that a lot more prominently in liberal arts institutions or people that talk about the development of the whole self. But in a large sense, the American population goes to the university for job preparation as well. And if it ever senses, it being the body of students, the American population, that industry is reducing its need for labor because of artificial intelligence, that's going to also reduce the demand for higher education. And because higher education is propagated by tuition and people coming to campus to buy books and signing up for online classes, when that reduces over time, that's going to signal the destruction of higher education. It's not the case. Thank you. It's not the case that these things operate in a vacuum. When you hear about 25% less hiring of new graduates, that is a signal from the market that it has found a workaround for the credentialing that we were the exclusive arbiters for. No longer are we the only game in town. And when industry finds a workaround, that usually means the death of the thing that is working around. So because of my first set of arguments, higher education's being impacted by artificial intelligence. Secondly, industry having less of a need for higher education. It's the end of history. It happened yesterday. We just don't realize it yet.
Okay, perfect timing. Okay, Dr. Labossiere, it's on you.
All right, so now switching from optimism to pessimism. These ironically are pessimistic reasons why AI will not destroy the academy. One is the bursting bubble. So America, as we know from experience, has a bubble-based economy. We had the housing bubble, we had the dot-com bubble, and if we go back to the beginning of the United States, it's bubble after bubble after bubble. And I won't get into the horrible economic details, but AI looks like it'd be a bubble. We have NVIDIA, giving money to OpenAI and other companies, and they give money back, and eventually we get a big bubble, but it eventually will burst. Now, this bubble, if it occurs, will wreck the economy once again, and will hurt the academy, but we survived the previous bubbles, so we'll probably survive this. So in this case, AI won't be able to destroy higher education because AI will destroy itself. So a pessimistic, optimistic scenario. Secondly, and I'm going to get increasingly pessimistic, so you may want to mute me. Second level of pessimism is state hostility. Federal government and state government, when weakening higher education through cruel indifference, lack of funding, etc., lack of support, and this has transitioned in many states now to full open hostility. And so higher ed as we know it could be destroyed by the governments, state and federal, before AI can. So there'll be nothing there for, the Terminator's not going to get us because we got ourselves. Again, super pessimistic. But wait, it gets worse. So as people have, seen my other talks, I always end with like a, end of the world thing. So here we go. So if AI, kills us all or destroys the economy or wrecks everything, end of higher education. But higher education will persist in a new form and evolve because AI models will train and educate one another. And therefore, higher education will outlive us humans because, to use a little technical twist, the topic is not whether humans will continue higher education, it's whether higher education will survive. And the answer is yes, only AI will be doing our job as both teacher and student. So those are my pessimistic reasons why we shouldn't be pessimistic about AI destroying the academy, because either AI will die, the state will kill us first, or AI will wipe us out, but keep education going.
Perfect timing. I didn't even have to give you your 1-minute warning. You were wrapping up.
We're professionals.
You're making my job easy. Dr. Scriven, it is on you for your rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. So taking copious notes, my esteemed colleague was giving some good arguments. I want to go back and address a couple though. The first is, I think there's a false analogy between the calculators or writing and artificial intelligence. Okay, the kind of innovation we're talking about. And here's why. Even if the people themselves at the time thought that it was the end of everything for the printing press to be there, or for the TI-84 graphing calculator to be there, I think it's a false analogy. And here's why. Because artificial intelligence is a non-linear shift. And what I mean by that is it's a shift that impacts the entire world at once. Okay. So it's not just, oh, the writers are concerned about this or the mathematicians are concerned about that. No, it's impacting everybody at once, all labor markets. It's not just farmers and people have to move to the cities. It's everybody at once. Okay. Secondly, AI has done away with the notion of cheating. So you raise this idea of, cheating and undermining and whatnot. I think the fact that we're holding on to this notion of cheating means that we're still in yesterday. It doesn't make any sense. It's like saying to a student who has a self-driving Lamborghini parked out front of their house to walk to school in the rain. It's ridiculous. We know they're going to drive that car. So the presumption has to be, we know they're going to use AI. And so if higher education is trying to attach this, galactical level tool to an archaic process, it already is doomed, in inevitability, I guess, to use Elon Musk's term, in inevitability. All right. So to say that AI is a bubble,
1 minute.
well, yeah, it could be a bubble. 1 minute. It could be a bubble, but so far that bubble is growing and it's moving the entire world's market, and it's transforming the way that we live. So I don't know that it would qualify as a bubble in the same way. Lastly, if AI takes over higher ed and as a logical sleight of hand, higher ed continues to persist, I think we all would still agree that would mean the end of higher education as we know it. If the machines now are our teachers, then I think, I will have won the debate. I would like to, is that it? Oh, I like to wrap up with this. So there's never been a case where the smarter is controlled by the less smart. So if you can imagine, if we wanted to wipe out all of the gorillas in the world, if we had the will to do it, we could probably do it in a matter of days. Okay. So it doesn't make any sense for us to think that we can control something with super intelligence just because we have the will to do it. At some point or another, it's going to overthrow some of the projects and the possibilities that we imagine for ourselves. And we're deluding ourselves if we think that it's going to be otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Labossiere, it is on you for your rebuttal. And then we'll open the floor for questions.
Dr. Scriven, as always, makes many excellent points in his criticisms, getting right to the heart of the issue. Now, in response, I'm going to do a John Connor Terminator 1, not like all the later ones. So where humanity, I'll be optimistic, where humanity is able to defeat the machine, or like in a nice way, we're able to do an Isaac Asimov, we're able to like befriend the machine. So I think probably our greatest chance is, in terms of higher ed surviving, is outcompeting AI. And I think we can do this. One thing I think that will support this is not long ago, there was these things called MOOCs, MOOC, basically massive online, blah, 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 kind of like the Warcraft of education.
Yeah.
And those are supposed to revolutionize everything, but they don't exist. There may be like a couple left, kind of like a MySpace type of deal. And that showed we had competition against higher education, which we beat, essentially. We outcompeted them, either for good or for bad. Now, also an excellent point about if higher education decides not to evolve, then it definitely dies. And so it kind of comes down to, are we going to evolve or die? And Dr. Scriven is betting on death. I'm betting on evolve. We can adjust our pacing and curriculum. We could switch to, this would be a grind, but we could switch to 6-week semesters like we do in the summer. We could create self-paced classes, which, to be fair and balanced, it could lead to the problem of maybe we would be destroying ourselves to win. We become the machine to try to fight the machine. And in terms of like jobs, we can adapt to that too, but this does create the problem, a very serious problem Dr. Scriven notes, and we become, we look into the abyss, the abyss looks back into us, and if we fight the monster, we could become the monster. Now, my final optimistic point is, which is also pessimistic, of course, is that AI seems to have hit a plateau. What they need to beat us is true general intelligence. It needs to be as smart as we are, at least as smart as we are. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Uh, so optimistically, pessimistically, AI has probably hit a plateau and it's like stuck and the bubble will take it out and it will still be there, but it may be the case. People often say this is, AI is always going to get better, but I submit that maybe the improvements will be marginal. And until it can make that leap, which maybe it cannot, thanks to people like Descartes and others, maybe it's just metaphysically impossible. So in closing, I would say we can either outcompete AI, and I think this is likely because I think AI has hit a plateau. So I think we can John Connor those machines and win, or make friends with them, Wall-E style. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for your points and communicating both sides of this conversation. I want to start by opening the floor with a question, and it kind of gets at some of the points that are being made in the chat is, can higher education adapt fast enough? And not only can it adapt fast enough, but can we use it responsibly so that it doesn't undermine our learning and our education, specifically students developing that critical thinking and the fundamental analysis that does happen within the higher education context?
I would say no, but probably probably not. I'm embodying this position, and probably it's the case that Dr. Labossiere and I think some similar things, and we think what we're saying in degrees, it's not absolutes, but it's degrees. So to the question though, higher ed has a business model. And I think we overlook that. We think of higher ed as like K-12, and it's a very different thing. Higher ed has a business model. It sells units. It doesn't sell you get through it as fast as you can. Okay. It doesn't sell you get through it, but don't pay me for the rooms and the Chick-fil-A. Okay, there's a business model to it. And so it would have to unbecome itself. In other words, it would be destroyed. It would have to do something else if it's going to keep pace with what the technology is allowing us to do. Because when you hear things like, you can't use it like this, don't use it to cheat, what essentially the signal is, this tool is so advanced that if I allow you to use it, it will kick a hole in the game. And so I'm trying to hold you back from using it. Remember this? Don't bring your phone in class. Don't bring the calculator in class. That was trying to hold you back because of the business model. You can't have weed, but when the government finds a way to tax it, okay, weed is okay. Okay, so it took a long time though. So my point is, I don't know that we will evolve fast enough, and there will be some institutions who do, elite institutions who may, but fundamentally there's a business model underlying all of this that needs to be recognized, and that's the higher education I'm talking about. That's not as fluid as people want to pretend that it is.
Okay. Dr. Labossiere, do you have a comment regarding that, or an answer to the question, or a comment regarding that question?
Yeah, it's an excellent point because I agree with Dr. Scriven that the key question here is we are facing an existential crisis, and the question is can we evolve? Can higher education adapt to the changing world? And if we try to, I agree that if we just try to say, hey, there are all these wonderful tools, you can't use it. This would have been like when computers came up, like, oh, there are these great computers, but do not bring them on campus. We're not having computer science. We're not having the internet. We're gonna be basically the Middle Ages. So that is the challenge. Now, I'm optimistic. I think, well, optimistic, pessimistic. Optimistically, I think, based on my own experience here, that there are faculty and people who can, who are right now, they recognize that the future was yesterday, and they were already working on yesterday's future the day before yesterday, so they're going to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
And one other optimistic thing is my belief that I've been in higher education a long time because Dr. Scriven was one of my first students, when I started. So been doing this quite a while, and I've seen the model of education change radically, going from the academy as we're here to become, better people, more well-rounded, better citizens, to now transitioning to workforce readiness, very serving the industry, which can be a practical approach, and we can change our strategy. And it may be the case that somewhat ironically, that attempting to uh, become workforce that will lose, that will destroy ourselves because we'll be offering just vocational training, as Dr. Scrivener has said, that's not what we're great at, because it's, if you just want to learn how to do something, which incredibly useful skills. I mean, I learned how to do my own plumbing and electrical work during COVID, and that was super useful. So I'm 200% behind that kind of stuff. But we have to find like what is our special mission, and we may lose that. And I think Dr. Scrivener is right. If we lose our special mission, higher education is gone, even though the shells of the institution might survive. So optimistically, we have to adapt. Pessimistically, maybe AI will blow up, and so we win the competition because it was all just a mechanical Turk, deceiving us. It's the Wizard of Oz, essentially, and that's how we win.
Thank
So
you for
optimistic pessimism. Thank you.
So the chat is very active. So some people are making similar points regarding how AI is essentially able to level the playing field for people, right? So regardless of your economic background, you are able to utilize this tool to be able to propel yourself forward. But also in the education space, you're able to use it to help fill in some of those gaps, right? So how is it? The question I want to get at is how can AI essentially be used, or even having guardrails on AI adversely affects communities who are often disadvantaged?
Well, I think it can if it's in the hands of people who don't have those communities' best interests at heart.
Mhm.
And that's what we've been facing. We've been largely consumers of AI apps, but we haven't controlled artificial intelligence. We don't own the products. Very few from our communities are creating with the applications as opposed to simply being consumers. So, making memes and doing PowerPoints and all that's cool and interesting, but that's not the heart of the matter. So let me just kind of shift though. I think it can, to the first part of the question, be a leveling influence, something that empowers communities that were, disadvantaged in terms of resources, in terms of access, because I don't have to pay exorbitant funds in order to learn a skill. I tell you, for instance, so and Dr. Taylor's a business professor. So normally I would have had to go to the university to learn how to do finance, or if I didn't know some business person or trade in markets or whatnot. But I asked AI, teach me how to do stock options. Okay, gave me a little tutorial, and I was like, okay, cool. Let me put some of this into play. Okay, next day I made $10,000. Person able to do that is going to say, do I need to go this route that I was told is the only route I can go in order to be successful? Or do I have options? Pun intended. Do I have options? And I'm saying, I'm a kid that grew up between two housing projects in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm discovering this now because the technology is here now. If the technology was available when I was 8 years old, I could have done that same thing, provided I had a little capital at 8 years old at that level, and built up and built up and built up. My point is, the bodies that were the gatekeepers for credentialing, i.e., the universities, are no longer exclusively that. And when people realize that, because there's still a social value, networking value. Look, you can't pledge on Chat GPT. Okay, I get it, right? But if you're not there for that, then you can really supplant a lot of what you came to the university for if it's about credentialing and access to industry. So communities that were normally disadvantaged actually have a great advantage with the technology. And the universities are not the sole purveyors of competency about the technology. You can do it yourself. And that's the game changer.
I want to ask one last question, and then if anybody would like to raise their hand so then we can engage with you all a little bit more, just use the raise hand feature. And then if you have a question, we'll open the floor up that way. But I know there are a lot of students in the room, and some of the concerns even that are showing up in the chat is, not wanting their skill sets to be replaced. I know I have a few of my students on here who are talking about them being able to use AI as an assistant. There's a student who's a graphic design major who has communicated that, AI is an easy way out and it's really infiltrating that area in that industry. But as students are navigating their coursework and their curriculum, how do students almost protect themselves from this like flood of AI, especially when it concerns, being accused of cheating or using it to complete assignments, even though they didn't? What advice do we give students as they navigate this from their side to really be able to properly engage with AI in a way that's beneficial, but also to really almost protect themselves from the thing that is AI?
You want to go first, Mike?
Sure. So in terms, yes, AI definitely presents challenges, like especially in graphic design. Everyone's probably seen things like Midjourney, Google Nano Banana, and companies, probably thinking we don't need graphic designers anymore. We don't need artists anymore. And so in terms of future proofing, there's kind of two concerns. One is the economic concern, which is as a labor unit in a economic system, how do I, as a human being, compete against the machine? And which has been long a question. Used to be trying to compete against something like the loom or compete against steam power, robots and factories. Now it's against AI. And so the usual answer people give is you have to develop skills that the machines cannot have at this time. And that's a moving target because ironically, this time around, the jobs that are supposedly going to be displaced by AI are like the thinking jobs. Before it was physical labor, now it's thinking. So you have a case where, for example, with Amazon, most they have humans, I call them, remote controlled humans, where the people we're really good at selecting stuff off shelves, and so the employees at Amazon are directed around by a computer they wear, and their computer is like their boss. They're just essentially physical labor doing this, and that's an option, but that's like a nightmare dystopian scenario where humans are being ridden around by robots, being controlled by them. So the first thing is, the practical thing, and this would be a general question of like you have to know the current tech. What can you do as a human that machines can't do? And that's going to change constantly because, yeah, as I said, the future was yesterday, and the skills that you'll need for when you graduate, you're probably not getting them now, and unfortunately. Secondly, there's also going back to the classic approach to higher education. These are things that machines can't take away from us. Things, doing things not for the sake of, working in a market, but for your own sake. And a quick example. Years ago, I looked at the question of, it started as a question about can someone with no skill at drawing become an artist? And so I went on a 13-year journey that's going on to test that. And the answer is no. But you can develop the skills. Now, obviously, I can't outdo AI. So if I wanted to go become like make money as an artist, I couldn't because AI is going to beat me. However, I still draw every day. Because I do it for myself. Because I enjoy the process. I think it makes me a better person to do this. Also, it keeps my cognition going, fighting off inevitable decline. And so, if we're trying to go, so there's to close, there's two things. One is, from a practical standpoint, how do you outcompete the machine? Secondly, what do you do that you think would make your life better. As Aristotle and Plato and a lot of dead philosophers said, the goal is not just not to rack up money. I mean, you got to do that, of course, money or die, but to achieve human excellence, and that is where we find happiness. And Aristotle said, money isn't happiness. I mean, he says, yeah, you got money to pay the bills and feed the goats, but without the rest of it, it's kind of what are you doing it for? And of course, as a philosopher, I'm obligated to say that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I see two hands up. So we'll start with Alex and then we'll go to Talia. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much. Alex De Silva, University of South Florida. I'm struggling with these issues right now. As a researcher practitioner, I teach high school chemistry, and I think one of the ways that we can kind of proof ourselves or protect ourselves from the onslaught of AI is really how ethical are we as human beings? Do we take an ethical approach? And that's something that I'm working on. That's one piece of my research. The other part of this is really I think that AI is not going to be a great leveler. I feel that there's still going to be sort of a global north and a global south when we think about AI. There will
Sure.
be the haves and the have-nots. And I think those that have are going to exploit the have-nots. We have these large language models that, the data centers are here in the United States. The data centers are in the global north. But the people who are contributing to developing and building these large language models are in the global south. They're in India, they're in Pakistan, they're in Southeast Asia. So I feel that that divide or the fear that people have of, oh, that some person will just be able to pick up a computer in some far off country and be able to outcompete me. I think that that is still far off. But I still think that there needs to be an approach to how we teach people to use AI that makes them ethically grounded to be able to know how to use AI and not be used by AI. And I'll close with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Did you all have any comments regarding his statement?
No, I mean I do have some comments, but I think it was well said. I think we definitely have to promote ethical use of AI. They're definitely going to continue to be haves and have-nots, given um, the exponential capability of the technology. The gaps between the haves and have-nots is going to increase actually. But I'm just saying on a personal ingenuity level, it is possible for a person to grab hold of the technology and to do something that was not in their grasp. Even if we look at the aggregate, it's probably going to be the case that things shake out along the same lines and maybe even get bigger. But I think to the previous question that was asked, what can we do and this and that? I think we have to embrace the technology as a part of modernity. So to talk about it like, how can I outcompete the calculator? That doesn't make any sense. How can I outcompete the printing press? So we need to do away with that. That this idea of keeping the barbarians outside of the gates suggests that we have a notion of reality that says what we think is intact, what we thought was intact, is still intact, and it's not. It's over. And I think that's an emotional, psychological bridge we need to go ahead and build a fire outside, exhale, and just go scream around the barrel because it's over. And now we need to understand what does it mean to move forward, and how do we protect communities that we know are going to be ravaged if there is no intervention by we who are the educated, and who have the interests of the community in heart. So we have to think through those things because there are global ramifications to this. And if higher ed tries to treat AI as an appendage that we use to do business as usual, we are totally missing the point, and industry is going to ravage us all.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Labossiere, any comments?
Yes, I would. Analogies are always risky, but I would say it's good to look at the rise of the internet, because for those of us who were there for that, we were there in those ancient days. It was a time of great promise. The claim was this would, lead to great democracy, great opportunity, and for a brief shining moment, there were parts where there were beautiful things. Anybody could get on there, like on GeoCities, create stuff, and it was unregulated and hideous in terms of the graphics. But for a brief moment, it was a land of promise. And then, of course, as we know how it played out, control was seized by governments and by corporations like Meta and Google. And then we ended up with essentially electronic fiefdoms and social media, which is, some have credibly claimed, has, destroyed democracy. And so we have the same worry with AI, because the claim is, oh, this will level things as the internet did, but it's already controlled by people like Elon Musk has Grok, Meta has their own AI, Google has theirs, and so the worry is that it'll just make things worse. And what we'll probably have, and in the case of the internet, no one came to save us. With the hope was that rebels and Robin Hoods would do something. And with AI, we might just see more of the same. So my worry is it'll be something that is presented as an incredible, utopian thing, but will end up making everything worse. So I always end with pessimism.
And I want to we have two more hands. So Kalia, go ahead, and then we'll take a question from Matthew, and then we'll probably wrap up there.
Hi. So when it comes to AI being used in higher education, I do typically fear about the critical thinking part of it. That people, the students I've noticed, so, and even like in general education, students are unable to read. They're unable to write because they've just been using the AI to do it for them. So when the AI is taken away, they're like, what is this?
Yes.
So that's one thing I worry about too, is also kind of threatens my career as a graphic design major, as trying to get into art direction. I just noticed that whenever someone creates something with AI, there's no emotion in it. There's no drive, there's no talent, because all you do is type in a prompt and the AI just pulled from different sources and the internet that it could find and just puts it all together, and it usually looks pretty bad. But when a human makes something, it's more beautiful because it's just natural. You can see the flaws and everything. So I don't know, just as a little tangent. I'm like looking at people talking in the chat right now as well. It can't replace AI just can't replace people, but it can harm people.
Yeah, I think you're right. Couple quick points. So thanks for that. First, yeah, I think that when you say there's this dethinking, I think you said, but cognitive offloading. In other words, people allow the machine to think for them and they don't develop themselves. Yeah, I think that can happen if we keep the same measures and assessments in place that we have had before AI. So what I'm saying is partly the faculty's responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So I can't go in my test drawer and give you the same test I've been given for 20 years and then expect you not to use Optimus Prime to pass that test.
Not Optimus Prime.
Right? That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling you, I'm going to put you in jail if you use Optimus Prime. And so now you're developing, things that erase the presence of Optimus Prime, and we're having these battles. But yes, that will happen if we have the same assessments. But listen, we're in a whole new world now. I should be giving you assignments that I would be giving master's and PhD students, because you have technology that should produce that level of output. And you should be able to explain it, because the acceleration of learning and the personalization of learning that you have access to away from me as a professor should be demonstrated in the amount of time that you spend engaging with the tool. So I shouldn't, and if I let you off giving me the same old assignment that you just chat GPT, that's on me. I'm cheating you out of your money. Okay. Secondly, with the with your career, you're right. But you have to, again, I'm a writer. I'm a philosopher. I write books. I write novels. I do documentary film. I write philosophy books. I write books on theology. I write self-improvement books. And the first thing I said when I saw this technology was, man, what am I going to do now? He writes books, right? So I had to have that existential crisis, go ahead and, cry outside, and then say, okay, what I can do is learn to utilize the technology so it becomes a research tool for me. There's certain things I may not need to engage in anymore. I may need to discover new ways of being who I am. And that's the kind of the barrier that we're hesitant to cross. We want to remain the same, but yet we're in the presence of all these transcendent beings now that don't allow that. And we're having a fundamental problem with it. So we have to really come to grips with that, because the truth is the question is going to shift from the employer asking you about your knowledge of AI. They're going to start asking you, tell me about the bot that you built. What does it help you do? How prolific can you be? Basically, what's your Optimus Prime suit that you can get into? You can do something amazing. If you don't have that, because there are going to be little kids in elementary school who are building these bots, and they're going to have a developed bot. By the time they're your age, they'll be able to build worlds. And so we have to really think through what it means
Basically up our game in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to go ahead and give Matthew a chance to ask a question or make a comment, and then we'll wrap up from there.
Hey guys, great debate. So the first thing I wanted to point out was I don't see the plateau. So Anthropic just came out with a new model, I think it's called Mythic, where they found exploits in operating systems and software that have gone unnoticed for 20 years. So humans have been unable to detect these things, and now they're creating these models that can do that. So I don't see the plateau at all. I don't know what the argument is for that. But the other thing, and this is kind of a criticism of the debate in general, is it sounded like it was a predictive game where we're trying to predict the future. But I think that only makes sense if we have access to the relevant probabilities of what will happen. And I don't think we have any of those probabilities. And so in the absence of knowing the probabilities of what AI will do, it seems to me more sensible to assume the worst, given that this technology could have irreversible, catastrophic effects on humanity in general. And so shouldn't we get out of the prediction game, assume the worst so that the guardrails can keep this thing on as much track as we can keep it, instead of downplaying it and, saying, oh, things probably won't be that bad? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me, Matthew. So I'll just say quickly, and then Mike, you can jump in here. So I think the first part of it is hopium. We're hoping that things do not go the way that we see them going. We see industry responding with layoffs and not hiring. We see it. We see what's happening with the technology, its capabilities, and how disruptive it is. We see that. We see those things, but we're trying to say that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. Oh, it could be something else. It could be anything. It'll be a bubble. Maybe it'll pop. But we're hoping that it's not what we think it is. Now, I think you're right. Our energies are better used, instead of hoping, having a summit. We really haven't done this as FAMU, as a higher education institution in general. We haven't sat down amongst ourselves and said, okay, here are the facts. Now, how are we going to move forward from here? We're doing something very different that's dancing to the tune of the industry in a way that makes me think that consumption has displaced being strategic with us, and we need to do that quickly because our students are relying on us. And so I'm not saying that higher education is going to end today or tonight or tomorrow or next week or next year. But again, as the tech bros say, this is an inevitability. And we got to, really come to grips with that.
So, as always, I'll be pessimistic. So, I think with AI, we're in a scenario where uh, it's controlled by the ethics of the powerful because they have the power. Unfortunately, the ethics of the powerful is what we as philosophers would probably consider either ethical egoism or amoralism or Thucydides. We had the administration talking about it as, essentially might makes right. And those people like us, like we three philosophers are talking about the ethics of it, and we don't have the power. I can't, call up Anthropic and say, hey, can you tone it back a bit? I can't call Pete Hegseth and say, we need some morality here. And so, yeah, you raise a very good concern in terms of the probability is that the probability calculus essentially is what are the moral guidelines by those who are calling the shots. And we have to rely on the moral guidelines of people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Pete Hegseth, and Donald Trump, as opposed to people like us. And so that is an important concern. So, in a practical matter, what will probably limit AI is not ethics, because the current billionaires, etc., have shown a at best amoralism. It will be probably the technological limits. So, barring like the people rising up and revolting against AI, which could happen, AI is widely unpopular among the many, is the technological limit. So, I'm essentially gambling that their dreams cannot become true because, yeah, even though AI is incrementally improving, able to find more mistakes, etc., that it will not be able to achieve what we would call true general intelligence, that it won't become us. Then to be really pessimistic, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it'll become so capable that even though it's not truly like aware of consciousness, it can still do all the terrible things we predicted of it. And I agree that we should consider maybe not the absolute worst case scenario, but we should consider the likely or plausible bad case scenarios. But in closing, to be pessimistic, I'm guessing that the only thing that's probably going to save us, short of a revolution of the people against the machine, John Connor it, that we'll have to rely on the technology just not panning out. That it won't be able to become, our AI overlords because it just can't be done now.
Thank you. So as we wrap up, I did launch a post-survey poll. So it's the same questions as what we started out with. And we just want to gauge how your thought process has changed in just a singular question of will AI destroy higher education? And we know that this is an ongoing conversation. So we thank you all for joining us today for this civil discourse event. Again, this is one of the installments in the Cyber Policy AI Community Learning Series that was brought forth by our provost, Dr. Allison Watson, and in partnership with the Teaching and Learning Center. And we know that we're not going to be able to come up with solutions nor address the problem in a single conversation, right? And Dr. Scriven alluded to this, where we have not really had the opportunity to have ongoing conversation that really propels us forward, not only as an institution, but also our individual considerations, right? So, and there are a lot of things that we didn't touch on. I saw someone in the chat talking about the environmental aspects of using AI, right? We didn't even touch on the water usage, where they are actually building these data centers. That's a concern that we as intellectuals will constantly have to battle with as we are incorporating AI into the conversation. So we thoroughly appreciate you all engaging with us, not only in the chat, but coming off mute and asking your questions. I want to thank Dr. Scriven, Dr. Labossiere, for being willing to serve as our kind of debaters in this conversation. This was a really insightful opportunity for us to engage with each other. And I know I want to have more of these conversations so that we can also hear from more of our community members, more of our students, because they have concerns, and we should be tailoring ourselves and our solutions to address these concerns. So we thoroughly appreciate everyone for coming. I know there are some students who are attending from our classes, so I just put the Qualtrics for that. If you are a student, please complete that form. It will allow you to select if you're in my class or Dr. Labossiere's class and which class you are actually in so we can get you your extra credit. And we thank you for joining us. We are at time and we really appreciate you all for taking this hour out of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Labossiere. Thank you all. Very insightful comments in the chat.
Yes.
Everyone, we appreciate that, definitely.
Thank you all for joining. We hope you have a great day. Stay safe.
Thank you to my Nona family. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, let me say, I will note that it was 60-40, so people are coming more to the middle on considering whether or not
Yes,
AI.
and I can share. So it was it was almost close. We were almost back where we started. So that is interesting as well to see kind of that flux. And I will stop our recording.